Take my time with it. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for hanging with me on this Friday. So I'm about to go down to the lake right now, but I'm going to show you a couple differences when it comes to basically big baits and small baits, because they each have their place. And I think small baits are probably the most misunderstood baits. So when I'm talking small baits, when I'm power fishing in the pre-spawn looking for bass, I turn to the SKT MR. That's a medium running, flat-sided crankbait. Very similar to a Fritz Side 5. And then I'm also throwing more subtle baits than that, because that one has a rattle in it. I'm gonna go to my semi-flat-sided baits, like a DT6, that are wooden. They have no sound. Those baits for me are when I am around fish. So not just necessarily community holes, but if I am fishing riprap, I'm fishing around docks, I'm fishing places that I know get a lot of fishing pressure, but are obvious spots that have bass. If I'm going to my old waypoints, that's typically what I'm going to throw. Now, let's not misunderstand big baits, because big baits catch them everywhere. And if you have big forage in your lake, the big baits are going to match that forage better than small baits. So I am still gonna keep my swank or my hybrid hunter, big lipless crankbaits, big 3/4 ounce lipless. I have some 1/2 ounce original rattle traps that are super loud. So loud baits that vibrate a lot. Gunnersville in particular, we have really big forage here. So when I'm throwing a chatterbait, I put a full-size skinny dipper on the back, full-size swim bait, because I think a lot of times big forage is going to be a more natural presentation. But I think it's also very important to note that when you're out there looking for fish, little baits don't do a great job at that. That's something I learned as a co-angler. When I fished with guys and we weren't around fish, you could tell my partner was in search mode. Maybe it was post-spawn. We were covering a lot of water and we didn't know where our next bite was going to come. Little baits aren't good for that. Little baits are only good when you know you're around fish. You can catch big fish, some of the biggest fish on the lake, with Finesse type lures. You just have to be throwing them at big fish. Big baits are your best bet when it comes to finding fish, because they're loud. They put off a lot of commotion. They're obtrusive. They're in the fish's face, and there's no mistake about it that fish know it's in their presence. They hear it, they see it, they feel it. And either they bite it or they swim away from it. Little lures, Finesse approaches, I don't always feel like the fish know that that bait is there. Now, if it's a fish that's been fished for a lot of lures have been by that fish's face. Little lures are typically the ones they are going to bite. So that's the biggest difference. And let's dive into some little bait fishing. There he is. Got him on 12-pound test. Take my time with it. Twelve-pound test and number 6 hooks. It's not a giant fish, but there we go. Nice little football. As fat as they are, I mean, that's close to 3 pounds. That is a chunky bass. So this is a type of spot it's small, it's obvious, it's a place that I rarely can fish on a Saturday when there's 300 boats out. There's typically a boat sitting here. So instead of using, you know, the 10 baits I have on the front of the deck, just start with the finesse baits, because it doesn't take a whole lot to fish it. It's about 15-20 casts and you fish the whole thing. So I'm not really too worried about finding them like I would be finding them if I had to fish a 200-yard stretch. I know there's fish here, they're just hard to catch. A lot of fishermen fish it. When you have that, these are the type of spots that you need to finesse fish on. As much time as I spent being a co-angler, I learned when you are around a lot of fish, your finesse baits, your small crankbaits, anytime you're power fishing is very important. You know, if you have a lot of waypoints on your lake, small crankbaits are going to catch you a lot of fish. If you fish a lot of community holes, a lot of places where you know big fish are going to live, they're just hard to catch. That's where small baits come in handy. But big baits, very important to search for fish, because if you can catch fish on big baits, those are going to be spots that are unpressured, and those are going to be spots where you can typically go back, downsize your tackle, and catch more bass. But first, guys, I want to thank you for liking this video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. That's going to help this channel out a lot, help me and my family out. And if you left me a comment, I love to talk fishing. This one, I think, has a lot of different sides to it. You know, a lot of times when you are cranking or power fishing with little baits, those fish just don't see that. So I think we can start a discussion on this, because I think a lot of people have different outlooks on this. You know, what I realized being a co-angler was, if you're not a lot around fish and you're going to finesse fish all day, you're really going to struggle. It's going to be a really tough day and you're going to rarely catch anything. But if you're around a lot of fish, you got a partner that had took you to places where there's a lot of fish, and he might be trying to catch those fish on the baits that he found them on. I'm back there mopping them up with some type of finesse style bait. You can really do a lot of damage. You can beat your partner from the back of their boat. So when I've taken this approach to the front of my boat, looking for fish, looking for new areas, new spots, new patterns, I realized that small baits just aren't good when you're trying to do that. You really need loud baits. You need those obtrusive baits that are going to get the fish's attention. And if you scare some fish away while doing it, that's fine. The more important thing is finding fish with those types of baits so you can go back to those areas and catch more. And those obtrusive baits that are loud, they vibrate, the bright colors in the early springtime, that is what is going to find fish. I mean, those are the things that are going to have drawing power to get fish to bite. Your shaky head, your little crankbait that just barely wobbles, don't go throwing those baits all over the lake. Take those baits to places where you know bass always live. Docks. I love to throw a finesse jig on docks. Riprap banks, where I know there's already been 5 or 10 boats that have fished it this week. I can come through there with a tight, subtle, small, wooden, no noise crankbait and catch bass behind guys. But I'm not going to take that same crankbait and go crank the ledge and the ditch and the flat and all those different places where I'm looking for bass. Not a good search tool. You know, if I want to go catch fish on a DT6, it's a very subtle bait. That's a bait I'm going to crank around bridges. That's a bait that I'm going to crank on that hole where I know there's big fish. You know, that community hole, the 2 boats have already went down it today, but I can come in behind them and catch them on that bait. So guys, it's very important to understand how important little baits are, but where they really shine, and how important the big baits are and when you need to implement those as well. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the water.